I commend this bill to the House. Kia ora.
Mr Speaker.
I call Meka Whaitiri, tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe. O te rai e te iwi, mai Tāmaki nui-ā-Rua, tai atu ki te Wairarapa e tū ki te mihi ki a koutou katoa. Oku rau rangatira mā, kuia mā, koro mā, a mokopona tamariki hoki, tēnā koutou nau mai, tēnā koutou nau mai, tēnā koutou katoa. Mr Speaker, it's indeed an honour to support the second reading of the Rangitāne Tūmaira Wairarapa Tāmaki nui-ā-Rua Claim Settlement Bill at the second reading. And can I acknowledge the iwi that have turned up here in the gallery today, and like my colleague, always exciting and promising for the future when we have our rangatahi in the gallery. So again, warm greetings to you all here today. Sir, there's a couple of people I want to also acknowledge that have been previously acknowledged by other speakers, and those are the original claimants, the individual, the whānau, the hapu that have really set the Rangitāne settlement in chain. And for those that are here and those that aren't here, I mihi to them. I mihi to our negotiators who have brought this to the House today, and also the current chair, Mavis Mullen. Lovely to see you out the front there, Mavis. And of course, the other trustees of the Tūmaira Post-Settlement Entity Group, Warwick Kagu-Hover, the Deputy Chair, Jason Kerehi, Yvette, Grace and Edward Pearce, for your stewardness in terms of where we are at the second reading. Kei te mihi ki a koutou katoa. Sir, particularly for the rangatahi that are in the House today, just by way of explanation of what we're actually doing here, this is the second reading. Every piece of bill that becomes law in this House has three readings. The first reading, where we all come into this House and they explain what we're trying to pass. The second reading, which we're doing right now, and then the third reading, which is the third and final reading before it becomes law. And like many in this House, we want to do this in a most timely and quick manner so that we can acknowledge Rangitāne's full and final treaty settlement, and then the iwi are left to continue on their way, sir. So I just wanted to take the time to explain that for our rangatahi in the House. I too want to acknowledge the work of the Māori Affairs Select Committee. I want to acknowledge the submitters that came before the Select Committee to raise the issues. I don't want to transverse what the Minister has and the Chairman, particularly on Te Kua Papauma and the other claimant groups. I think you've acknowledged that. But there are some issues uniquely to this particular settlement that I do want to talk about, sir. And when I read both the report from the Select Committee and, of course, the submission from Rangitāne Tūmaira Trust, there are a couple of unique characteristics that I just want to comment on. And one is to acknowledge the vast overlapping interests, sir, of Rangitāne settlement. So normally, when you are settling treaty claims, you've got an iwi north to you, and you've got an iwi south to you, or you might have an iwi west to you, or you might have an iwi west and an iwi east to you. And these are really important, sir, because obviously you're going to have what's called shared interest areas. And when I look at Rangitāne's, you know, I've got to acknowledge the vast number of cross-claims and iwi that you've had to navigate yourself through to get to where we are today. So I just want to acknowledge that because, sir, not everyone's going to be happy. Rangitāne aren't going to be happy, and neither are those surrounding iwi going to be happy. And unfortunately, when it comes to treaty settlement, those are one of the fallouts that happens when you are surrounded with so many iwi who all say that they have shared interests in the areas that Rangitāne have. So it's by no that we're here today, sir, indicates the work and the negotiation that has gone on to bring us here today. So I just want to acknowledge the overlapping interests by the vast number of iwi that surround Rangitāne. The other characteristic that I want to raise, and it wasn't addressed in the Māori Affairs Select Committee, and that is the shared redress bill. that was identified in the Tū Mai Rā submission to the Māori Affairs Select Committee. Specifically, in their submission, where we talk about in clause 17, where it says, in that regard, the bill does not give effect to redress relating to the following: A, joint vesting of the Mātai Kona property, joint vesting of the Mā Kirikiri Gravel Reserve, joint vesting of the bed of Lake Wairarapa, D, the statutory board for the management of Wairarapa Mona, and E, the vesting of the Mā Kirikiri Recreation Reserve and Mā Kirikiri Scenic Reserve in the tūpuna Te Rangi Whakaiwa. And then, Sir, the next clause in the Tū Mai Rā submission to the Select Committee, they went on to talk about the shared redress bill to be introduced to the House of Representatives following the introduction of the bill and before the introduction of the Ngāti Kaunguru Settlement Bill. There are currently negotiations and further discussions needed to finalise the redress to be included in the shared redress bill. I guess to the Minister that's here, and obviously the Chairman of the Māori Affairs Select Committee, just to give, I guess, some clarity to Rangitāne, given that we are debating and supporting at second reading the settlement bill. It's really, as I read it, premised on these outstanding areas in terms of the shared redress bill. And I think the House, well, this side particularly, okay, I would be really interested to know what timelines can we expect around the shared redress bill. And I'm pretty sure Rangitāne would want some clarity on when that's actually going to happen, given we are passing their treaty bill very much dependent on these outstanding issues. So, as I read it, Sir, perhaps somebody from the committee or the Minister may take that up and give some assurances to the House and Rangitāne particularly when we are going to get to the shared redress bill. Are we going to do it before the House lifts, or is that something for when Labour takes government in September later this year? Well, you all missed that one. It's okay. We'll take care of it. We'll take care of it. Just in closing, can I just, and I know there's more to, hopefully by the third reading, we'll have some clarity around that particular issue. But I think it's important that it's raised in this House, particularly as we're doing Rangitāne settlement bill. Can I just say, in closing, the Minister did acknowledge the mandate and representation challenges of treaty settlements, and I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree that that we are always going to have mandate and representation challenges through treaty settlements, and absolutely believe it's not the role of the Crown to determine who's mana whenua or who's tribal or who has tribal identity. One of the issues in response to the Minister's statements, Mr Speaker, is the fact that when we do set up these entities and we do acknowledge the wrongs of the Crown and we try and make up for what's been taken off our people, there are always going to be issues around those that feel left out. And when I looked at this particular settlement, and I just note for the House that we have 3,000 members of Rangitāne, and in terms of the ratification of the deed of settlement in the report, that 23.1% of eligible voting members actually participated in the deed of settlement. Now, 23.1% of eligible voting members of 3,000 is actually 690 people, Mr Speaker. But I do note that we got a 10% gain when it came to the governance, the post-governance entity, where we had 33% of eligible Rangitāne members voted, which is 990 out of 3,000. So the question, absolutely, the Minister, there is some mandating issues, but it's also a valid question to remind our iwi authorities that we need to lift participation for those that are eligible and feel that they have some skin in this game, because that's what we're trying to do in terms of passing legislations for all descendants of Rangitāne. And I know with Mavis's and, you know, the Māori Women's a winner of this year, ngā mihi to you, Mavis, that it's in good stead that Rangitāne will be able to take forth this once we get to third reading. But it's just an issue that I want to leave on the table for Rangitāne to ensure we get wider participation for the people in the uri of Rangitāne. That's when we're starting to get real, and I think the benefits, particularly when I look at those mokaponas, will be realised. Mr Speaker, I commend this bill to the House.
Mr Speaker.
I call it Alistair Scott.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It's